Chapter 6. The experimental analysis of reinforcement schedules. Initially, the title of this section of Chapter 6 kind of confused me. As an experimental behavior analyst myself, almost all of my research has involved experimental analysis of reinforcement schedules, and I've used them to study many aspects of behavior, from fundamental properties of learning to statistical reasoning to addiction. The textbook author, Jim Mazur, is also an experimental behavior analyst who's used schedules of reinforcement very widely in his own research. So what does he mean by the experimental analysis of reinforcement schedules? Well, it turns out that he's specifically referring to some of the puzzles that emerge when considering the 4 simple schedules discussed at the beginning of the chapter. For this video, let's focus on the cause of the post-reinforcement pause on fixed ratio schedules. Why do animals pause after reinforcement on fixed ratio schedules? Here are 3 hypotheses. 1. The fatigue hypothesis. Maybe responding is physically or mentally fatiguing or tiring, so once the subject has collected a reinforcer, it takes an opportunity to rest to alleviate the fatigue. 2. The satiation hypothesis. Maybe receiving the reinforcer reduces the animal's need or desire for that reinforcer enough to temporarily reduce the motivation to respond. And 3. The remaining responses hypothesis. Immediately after collecting reinforcement is the period when the animal is furthest from getting a reinforcer again on an FR schedule. That's the point when the animal has the most work to do before another reinforcer is delivered. So maybe post-reinforcement pauses are about not wanting to have to do more work. Each of these hypotheses sounds at least potentially plausible, but how can we determine which is correct? Several types of evidence help to distinguish among these hypotheses. For one thing, many experiments have shown larger fixed ratio requirements produce longer post-reinforcement pauses. This finding is consistent with the fatigue hypothesis, because larger response requirements should generate more fatigue. It's also consistent with the remaining responses hypothesis. After reinforcer delivery, the larger fixed ratio has more responses remaining than the smaller fixed ratio. However, this result contradicts the satiation hypothesis. The animal is able to collect reinforcers at a faster rate on a smaller FR schedule, so satiation should occur faster on the smaller FR schedule. More satiation should mean more pausing, so according to the satiation hypothesis, pauses should be longer on smaller fixed ratio schedules, not on larger fixed ratio schedules. Let's also consider these representative results from an experiment by Mintz and colleagues in the journal Psychonomic Science. This is figure 6.7 in the textbook. Mintz and colleagues trained pigeons to peck on 2 fixed ratio schedules. When the key they were pecking was blue, the ratio was large, an FR 100. When the key was red, the ratio was small, an FR 10. The key switched between red and blue several times per session, so every day pigeons experienced all of the following combinations: a large ratio followed by another large ratio, a large ratio followed by a small ratio followed by a large ratio, and a small ratio followed by another small ratio. In this experiment, the fatigue hypothesis and the remaining responses hypothesis make different predictions. According to the fatigue hypothesis, post-reinforcement pauses should be longer after the larger fixed ratio, no matter what schedule comes next, because that's when the pigeon is most fatigued. According to the remaining responses hypothesis, post-reinforcement pauses should be longer before the larger fixed ratio, no matter what schedule just occurred, because that's when the pigeon has the most work to do to earn the next reinforcer. Here are some representative results, and here are the long post-reinforcement pauses. The schedules they come after are a mix of large and small fixed ratios, but the schedules they come before are all large fixed ratios. This pattern is consistent with the remaining responses hypothesis, not the fatigue hypothesis. Post-reinforcement pauses appear to be caused by the work the animal has yet to do rather than the work they have just done.